Sahaviryam karavavahai tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
May we be nurtured together. May we be nourished together. May we strive together. May our learning shine in regards to today's teaching. May we not quarrel. Krishna spoke about general principles. Bahiranga sadhanam or samanya sadhanam. General disciplines means those disciplines by which one chooses to live throughout the day, throughout various circumstances. Why? Because they help with the quietening of the mind. So this means these general disciplines help you to solve the common problem of a noisy mind. And the four disciplines which we spoke about are equanimity. What is equanimity? We said the word samatvam. So samatvam means an equipoise or an equanimous mind that remains equal to whichever circumstances arise in life. It doesn't get too excited or too happy, neither does it get too sorrowful when a situation arises. Why should we also maintain this kind of samatvam mind or samatwish mind? Because we discussed any high spikes in life, any circumstances which generate high spikes. Not working, huh? Prediction successful. Is that one working?
There you go.
So any high spikes in life, in whatever situation, cause the emotional scar in the mind. And this emotional scar, if the situation is strong enough, creates a scar which comes out during meditation. So this means samatvam is used to prevent violent disturbances and violent thunderstorms in our life, in family matters, in matters of work, in matters of social service, in matters of children, in matters of spouse. Because if there is an argument, then one may solve that argument in the moment, but we all know from experience that's going to pop up later on in the day when you're having a quiet time. So what's better is to live by this samatvam, whereby such a situation doesn't even arise. That's why we have do not quarrel, because quarreling induces this disturbing mind. And how do we do this? We prescribed karma yoga to be the means by which we maintain a calm mind. That means devoting and dedicating all our actions to Bhagavan, because it is all Bhagavan. The second is self-confidence. This is Atma Kripa. Why do we need self-confidence? Because if we don't have confidence in ourselves, then no amount of Ishvara Kripa, Shastra Kripa, or Acharya Kripa, that is grace, Kripa means grace, is going to help. This means if a person comes in and they don't believe in their own capacity to grasp this, to assimilate this, then how is someone going to get across to this kind of person, right? So this means that it is a duty of the Shishya to develop and cultivate self-confidence. Atma Kripa means self-grace. So what is self-grace? Grace is when you give grace to yourself. And how do you give grace to yourself? By letting yourself have the belief, have the faith that I can understand this. Just the mere fact that I'm born, the mere fact that I have this body-mind instrument means I have the capacity to assimilate self-knowledge and convert it into a living reality. Otherwise, one person wouldn't be born. So just by the mere fact that you have a body means I can do it. Okay? So there's no reason to think I can't do it because I'm not born in India, I don't have this tradition from early childhood, I'm old, I'm young. There's absolutely no reason for this. In fact, it's just an excuse to keep one further in samsara. So this is out of the question. The third practice, we're still covering, revising 4 practices given by Krishna, is the practice of purushartha, which is self-effort. We discussed that if a person is destiny-oriented, that means they say that moksha is out of my hands, one fine day, Bhagavan will bless me, and I just have to wait. I just have to do my business and continue doing what I'm doing. It's a fantastic excuse to continue being irresponsible, actually. But this does not work because this does not allow the individual to exercise their freedom to will their own choices. That means to choose whether I wish to watch TV. Not that anything's wrong with watching TV, but excess TV watching, of course, becomes a problem. Or I wish to expose my mind to Shastra. So this is your choice. The other point about self-effort, purushartha, free will, is it's really funny that those who mention or use this excuse that everything is in God's hands, and yet this very individual will do what? When they're looking for a job, do they just sit around waiting for the phone call for some random employer to call by and say, hey, you're hired? No. What do? They go out assertively by mere effort looking for work. And yet in the spiritual realms, then the trajectory changes onto, well, I'm not responsible for my effort. I just need to relax. There's nothing I can do about this, and God will grace me with moksha one fine day. So this is absolutely out of the question of using this excuse. In one hand, in life, we assertively look for solutions, and yet in spirituality we ignore this. And finally, we talked about number 4, practice number 4, self-mastery or self-management. What this means is that every instrument is given to us, including utilities in the kitchen. You use them, right? You use them according to what? To your needs. In the same manner, the body, mind, and intellect complex is also another instrument, and the value by which this instrument exercises depends whether the individual, this instrument, chooses to invest its time into dharma, artha, kama, or moksha. So this means if I put all my effort into kama, desire, pleasure seeking, then I'm absolutely going to get that. If that same instrument given to be used in any way it wishes through purushartha, free will, and focuses all its effort on dharma and moksha, then that's exactly what it's going to get. So that's why it's so easy actually to get out of samsara. It's just a matter of holding focus or taking focus out of artha and kama, not that anything's wrong with it, I'm just saying not excess, and putting it entirely in dharma and then finally entirely into moksha. And we also spoke about 2 criteria how to do this, because I just spoke about the instrument. How do you keep an instrument clean? You maintain it. In the same manner, a mind that is not maintained, suppose the person smokes a lot, or they're exposed to a lot of loud noises, or they are in an environment that's constantly gossiping, then this environment is not conducive for one's liberation. So this means one has to assertively take themselves out, or at least help themselves not to be in a constant environment which creates an unhealthy organ. So this also means exercise. Exercise is also very important, because if the body is feeling weak, then it's not going to have energy to study. So it's all extremely connected. We're not just saying stick with knowledge and forget about asanas, forget about your exercise, Pilates, and so many practices. Everything's connected. And the second point about instruments is they have to be aligned. What does this mean? If your mind is here, wants to listen to the Gita, but the body is hungry, then who's going to win? Usually the lower drives win over the higher drives. So this means it's not just enough to have or to want moksha. Also, the body and the mind, the emotional condition, has to also be aligned with the intellect. Okay, they have to be congruent. And how do you do this? You do this by constantly holding focus as often as possible onto a higher ideal and giving the mind and the body circumstances which it enjoys. For example, walking is a sattvika karma, or maybe swimming if you like, or maybe tennis, anything that helps you to calm your mind down. So they have to be aligned. Okay, that's the revision. Verse 7. Together. Jit atmanah prashantasya paramatma samahitaha shitoshna sukha dukkeshu tathamana pamanayoho. We haven't finished this verse, so we'll continue it. We just scratched the surface of it last week. Okay. Jita atmanaha is one whose mind is free from stress or anxiety. That means prashantasya. So take the note of the word jita atmanaha, because it's an important word and we're going to keep building up. So a jita atmanaha is the one who is free from anxiety or stresses of life. Why? If you read the verse, the one who has mastery over oneself. That one who has mastery over what? What does oneself refer to? To the body, mind, intellect complex. So the one who has mastery of that, instead of that having mastery over the person, is what we call jita atmanaha. That means as a result of mastery, one is free from anxieties and stressors of life, which is prashantasya. And what's the advantage of being a jita atmanaha? The advantage, what did I just ask? I just asked, what is the advantage of having mastery over your body, mind? That's why I said, what's the advantage of being a jita atmanaha? The advantage is samahitaha, clearly evident. What is clearly evident? Paramatma. What is Paramatma? Brahman. So what's the advantage of one who has mastered their body-mind complex? The advantage is Atma recognition is easy. What does it mean it's easy? It's easier than going on a holiday. What does this mean? If you go on a holiday, what does this mean? We need to plan, we need to calculate, we need to work, we need to save up, we need to go through a lot of drama sometimes. Sometimes not, right? Sometimes holiday is very simple. Either way, Atma is easier than going on a holiday. Why? Because you can never get away from yourself. You don't have to go anywhere to recognize myself. You're already present right here, right now. But with a holiday, it's a big drama. Okay, now in detail, why is it easy? Why is recognition of Atma easy? Atma is samahitaha. In other words, it's clearly evident. And why is it clearly evident? Because Atman is revealed, Atman means self. Atman is revealed as consciousness, which is available all the time. So if you ask yourself, what is it in experience? Let's not even use the word my experience, because then we're talking about Advaita. So what is it in now put the word my way. What is it in experience that is always available? That which is always available in experience is consciousness. So this means because it's always available, one does not need to have an extraordinary state of mind or to recognize Atma in any particular state of mind. And what is Atma? Atma is conscious principle. Available when and where? Right here, right now. In any state of mind. Even if you say, I'm scared. And right now, in this point of my life, I don't know who I am. Just the mere fact of saying that, the person has contradicted themselves. Because they said, I am, Atma, scared. So there's an I am who just recognized the fear. So this is what I mean. Atman is that consciousness which is always present. It is always available. Even to say, I do not believe what you're just saying now, you've once again contradicted yourself because there was a recognition of the thought which doubted this statement. So that recognition, being Atman, the conscious principle, is still available to you right here, right now. And it's available how? As consciousness. And how is consciousness available? How is consciousness available? In what way is consciousness available? As self-evident existence. Nobody here needs proof that you exist. You know you exist. It's self-evident you exist. In fact, you know you exist more than anyone else can tell you that you exist. In fact, if I told you that you exist, you probably think I'm goofy because you already know that you exist. So this knowledge of existence is what is consciousness. In other words, you're conscious of yourself. So what is our experience? Our experience is this consciousness plus what? Thought. That's our experience all the time while living. That means I'm aware of myself, and on top of being aware of myself, of my existence, there is thoughts. What kind of thoughts? Thoughts about anything. Thoughts about anyone. Thoughts about the present, about the past, and in the future. At any intensity, for any time, for however long. So there's two principles, consciousness and thoughts. So in the mind, in your mind, there is one, changeless consciousness and changing thoughts. If you're falling asleep, slap yourself. Yeah. All right? So in the mind, there are two principles. One, changeless consciousness, and two, changing thoughts. And what does Vedanta say? Vedanta says, turn your attention from the changing thoughts to the changeless consciousness, in whose presence there is constant awareness of the changing thoughts, including the thought right now that one went to sleep. Right? You may have not been present, but you still know that I went and I dozed off, even though you were not present. So the fact that you know that one dozed off means that consciousness was still available. Okay, why else is it easy? Going back to the word samahitaha, that means it's clearly evident, because consciousness is in and through all thoughts. In and through all thoughts. And it is the one constant principle which we call consciousness, which is what? In and through all thoughts. For example, I am available of thought 1, gap. Thought 2, it goes away. There's a gap. Thought 3 comes. It also goes away. Now there's a gap. There's nothing. And then there's an arrival of thought 4. Thought 4 is sustained. Now thought 4 goes. Now there's another gap. So the gaps and the thoughts are recognized by the unchanging principle. This is actually common sense. You cannot recognize that the earth is rotating unless it is in reference to a fixed position of the sun. That's the only way we can say the earth is rotating. You cannot say the train is moving unless it is in reference to a non-moving object outside, the static trees. So the mere fact that one can recognize ongoing thoughts which are constantly modifying, by common sense implies there is a non-changing principle in whose presence these changing occurrences are constantly being made aware of. Okay? A metaphor example is, suppose that a person walks into a hall. A person comes. And then we have an experience with the person, a pleasant experience. Now person A goes. Now person B walks in, and we have an unpleasant experience with person B. And then person B walks out. And then person C walks in. And we have a joyful, a fun experience with person C. And then person C walks out. So what happened? There was an arrival and a departure of person A, person B, person C. And yet, what was constant? The light in the room in whose presence made what? Person A visible, characteristics, person B's characteristics visible, and person C's characteristics visible. In fact, we didn't have to do anything to experience the light. All Vedanta does is it points you to that principle which is already available constantly. And that principle is consciousness. In the same manner, thought one arises of what? Of a doubt. I don't know who I am. I doubt that I really know who I am. I don't even know if I really got this. And that thought goes away. And then a new thought comes in. I got a glimpse of Brahman. I think I know who I am. And then that thought leaves, right? And then a new thought comes in. Today I'm feeling very awkward. I'm feeling small. I'm not feeling very confident. And then that thought leaves. Person A, experience, goes away. Person B, arrival, departure. Person C, arrival, departure. And yet in the presence of what? Consciousness, me, self, Atman, in whose presence person A, person B, person C, there was an arrival and departure, that did not have to be experienced because it is only in its presence that everything else changing is able to be experienced. So that presence, which cannot be left, which cannot be denied, which cannot be grasped, which cannot be discovered, because it is always prior to the attempt of discovery, that principle is what we call consciousness or Atman. So the instruction of Vedanta is to turn one's attention from the changing person ABC, thought ABC, to the witnessing principle in whose presence or because of which the thoughts, the modifications, the alternations, the conditions of our mind, of our intellect, of our bodies are constantly being made aware of. It's a new word I'm coming up with. Awared. Every thought is being awared by what? Consciousness. If there is no consciousness, then how can you validate the condition of your thought, which is occurring in every one moment as a result of what? The interaction, the engagement with what? The world. How are you, Martin? Yeah, excellent. Okay. So what do we mean by turning attention from the constant changing to the changeless? We already performed the experiment before. If I show you the hand and I ask, what do you see? And then we go on, right? We go on with our, we go, oh, I see lines, I see skin, I see space, I see fingers, I see color. And we just keep on going for 20,000 samsara lifetimes. But what is Vedanta doing? Simply turning your attention onto that, because of which you're able to say there is lines, there is skin, there is fingers, which is what? The light. If I turn off the light, you cannot say anything. In the same manner, consciousness is that principle which cannot be negated, because it is only in its principle that which can constantly monitor and validate our doubts and certainties, our ignorance and our knowledge. Even to say I'm ignorant requires the light to shine on an ignorant mind for me to say that I'm ignorant. Thus, in actuality, if you say you're ignorant, you've just contradicted yourself. You're not ignorant, because you just made ignorance aware by what? Atma consciousness. So, Vedanta is not telling us to experience anything new. It is simply pointing us to what is already present. The light was already present, and yet we what? Constantly focused on the features, on the characteristics, on the attributes of what? The world. That is why whenever there's a sense organ exposed to the world, we what? constantly and innocently and immediately say something, because this is what the mind does. As soon as it sees something, it mentions something. I see hand, so I say hand. So what is Vedanta saying? The hand is a hand, nevertheless, put your focus back onto that principle which is there, allowing the person to constantly talk about the worldly objects which are being what? Entered through the sense organs, accumulated and put together in the mind. So your mind is what? A CPU which takes the sense organ data, like your touch, your smell, your vision, your hearing, and puts it together and creates a world. And what principle makes that world aware? Consciousness. So this means that if you close your eyes right now, what happens? There is still a world, is there not? But there is world minus what? Visual. If you close your eyes and block your ears, what happens then? There is still a world minus visual minus hearing. If we close our nose, actually let's not do that. If we take away our skin, because then we'll die, we're not going to have a chance. If we take away the ability to feel, there is a world only available to what? Smell and taste. So there is still a world. So this means the entire world that we see and we recognize and we give validity to is only because of the fact that the 5 organs are operating, putting the data into the mind, and there's a world created in the mind, and because of consciousness principle, we then validate and we talk about this world and we say, oh, nice waterfall, beautiful rainbow. Okay? So this principle, consciousness, is that principle which Vedanta is pointing us back to. So there's nothing new that we are learning here. Okay, why should I turn my attention to consciousness? Why should we? The answer is because by default, the mind, as I described, cannot help itself but to be constantly extroverted. Why is it extroverted? Because the senses are extroverted. You cannot help yourself. You open your eyes, instantly there's a world. And then what happens? We're innocently propelled, compelled, invoked to what? Speak about what's in front of us. So by the mere fact of sensory organs working, provide us information and we cannot help that. So thus, all the focus automatically goes on what we see, what we hear. For that reason, the answer to why should we turn our focus to consciousness? Because the mind by default goes on to the features of the hand and ignores the presence of the light. All right. Next question we can bring up is, actually it's not a question, we'll just say a statement in summary. We said that a mind needs to change its focus from the changing to the changeless. Now, what makes this easy? What makes this possible? Because it's easy to hear this, but I know that in the stage of not fully assimilating this knowledge, what we usually say is, you know, I hear you. I really do. And I have no problem believing. I absolutely hear you. And I've heard others also speak about the same idea. But it's just, there's something in me that I just cannot quite grasp it. It's not living for me. It's still a little bit superficial. It's still conceptual. I don't fully I don't know what it is, right? That kind of complaint. Why do we have this? Because this is actually what I'm talking about, 99% of the work. I'm not the body, mind, intellect. Tattva viveka kaha atma satyam sarvam mitya iti. That's easy. That everything else that's changing is not me, that which is changeless is me. That's easy. But why is it that we still do not grasp or fully assimilate this reality? The reason is because our minds are still not entirely pure nor prepared. So this is why 99% of this work comes to the maturity of the mind, which is why Vedanta requires a high qualification to work. And not only that, but it also can be improved. How? By practices like karma yoga, by practices like japa, by devotion, bhakti, which is chapter 7, which we're coming up to, excellent chapter, through various practices of what? Refusing to constantly look into the external world and placed attention inwards. So our life has been spent on the outside. So obviously the mind is not going to have the full capacity to address what is being said. For that reason, we're going to say, I don't fully assimilate this. So in that aspect, nobody can help you, only you can help yourself. How? By constantly attending to purification sadhana. One of the best ones is karma yoga. Okay, well, actually all the scriptures say this, but just say for Kena Upanishad. Kena Upanishad says, Atma is available all the time. That's a simple statement. So if you ever doubt that, then take it by faith alone, right? This is what, even though I don't completely believe this, I can take it by faith alone. I am available all the time. How do you prove that? Because you exist. As long as you exist, that's Atma. Now the problem is our existence, thanks to endless janmas and science, is attributed to what? Our heart beating. So when I say you exist, what we usually say is we think, yeah, I exist because I'm alive. So this principle has to be reversed. Your aliveness is due to what? Your existence, and not the other way around. If you do not believe this right now, take it by faith alone. So when I say consciousness, we usually think, yeah, the brain's working, that's why I'm conscious. The heart's beating, that's why I'm conscious. But this consciousness which I'm talking about is actually due to what? Brahman all-pervading through what? Every single body. And this all-pervading Brahman is what you experience as existence, as aliveness, and not the other way around. Okay? One metaphor that we can use for this is if you go to any, in regards to what? In regards to Atman is available all the time, as I said in Kena Upanishad. If you go to any meditation hall or any meditation school, no matter how good it is, what happens? We go inside the meditation hall and we meet people and we have different experiences in the meditation hall. Or those psychedelic, people who go after plants. So they go inside the room and they come out and then go to a next meditation. And this happens for the entire life. But what is the one principle that is the same in every single meditation hall? The light, which is illumining what? Every person's feature, every person's face, every person's experience. So this means that no matter how many meditation places you go to, there is one commonality amongst all of them, being that person who is aware of the thought which said, I have to go to the meditation hall. And that one is consciousness. Therefore, there is nothing that a meditation can give you, because just to have a thought, I want to meditate, there is what? That thought is being awared by whom? Consciousness, Atman. Therefore, no matter, so that pretty much puts meditation businesses out of business, because because they're depending on giving you a state of mind, an experience. But this experience, no matter how mind-boggling it is still what? It's made awared by whom? Consciousness. And what is consciousness? You. As what? As self-evident existence, I. Okay, now this recognition of Atman is done in two stages. So now we're describing how to recognize Atman and have no mistake about it. When we come to a class like this and we're told the truth, what is the truth of reality? In stage one, we're told, change your focus from, how are you? Focused? Okay. In stage one, we're told change your focus from the changing to the changeless. Okay, from the thought to the principle which illumines the thought. So this part is easy. In other words, change it from the ever-modifying principle, including of being tired and being sleepy. Change it from that to the witness of the sleeping, tired body, mind. Now, that's easy. You've heard this before. Now, the second stage of recognition is the most important because what happens is, this is stage 2, is when we hear stage 1, we say, so I am the body, mind, intellect, and this body, mind, intellect is being enlivened by consciousness. I am a body, mind, intellect, and I have consciousness. This stage 2 is the big problem, and we need to correct this. So what does this mean? It means that despite hearing the truth, we still take ourselves to be the body, mind, and that body, mind is now what? Enlivened with consciousness. So this has to be reversed. And how do we reverse this? With a very simple statement, because we're talking about lifetimes of samsara, of janmas, which have convinced us otherwise. What we say is, I am consciousness, which is blessing, illumining the instrument which I use to transact with the world. Okay? I use the body, which is an incidental gift, prasada of Ishvara, given to transact with the world and recognize the truth as consciousness. So a body is what? Only an incidental instrument given to me. What does me refer to? Consciousness, in order to recognize my, what does my refer to? Consciousness, true nature. What is true nature referred to? Consciousness. Okay. Okay, so what is consciousness, right? That's the next topic. Let's revise. Consciousness is not a product, not a part, nor a property of the body. Consciousness is not isolated to the dimensions of the body. So you can't say, as soon as I go outside the edges of the skin, it's no longer consciousness. As soon as I enter, right, this little skin, the epidermis, instantly you find consciousness. So consciousness is not isolated to our dimensions of the body, mind, intellect.
But you need a body to highlight the consciousness.
Oh, we need a body to say that I am consciousness, permeating the body. Yeah. Okay, so what is consciousness? So I said, what is consciousness not? What is consciousness? Consciousness is that which pervades the body and is distinct from the body, meaning what? The light which illumines the feature, which illumines the body, is what? Distinct from that which it illuminates. Is the light same as the hand? No. So this is an important aspect. That which illumines the world is distinct from that which it illumines. Okay?
So as a memo, like to these 2 stages, you'd say, stage 1, keyword, like witness. Stage 2, keyword, I am Brahman. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, it's both.
Awareness.
Yeah, but.
And stage 3 is not even to have to say it.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
You just skip the whole thing and just say I'm Brahman all day. You know? Yeah.
Okay, who here needs to acknowledge that you're a good car driver? Or just a car driver?
Just a car driver.
Okay, are you a car driver when you're swimming or rock climbing?
No.
Well, you are, but you don't need to acknowledge it.
Right.
You understand? You don't need to say I'm a car driver while you're doing something other than car driving. In the same manner, if a person is completely identified with Brahman, they do not need to say I am Brahman, even though they're in the whatever you do, whatever job you have. Right? It's always available. As soon as you put your attention, it's clear. But you don't need to put your attention because it's always there. In the same manner, one doesn't need to put their attention back on driving, just in case I forgot, because once it's established, it's established. One doesn't need to acknowledge I am Brahman. It's just silent, it's innocent, it's automatic. Okay, so consciousness is not property, product, or part of the body. It is a principle which is distinct from the body, and it survives after the death of the body. And what happens after the death? What happens after the death of the body? The surviving consciousness, which you are, can no longer transact. Not because it doesn't exist, but because the transacting medium, that is your body, is not available. In the same manner, when we go to sleep, we continue to exist, but the transacting medium, that is the body, mind, is not available. And because it is not available, neither is the transaction of the world. Because you need a transacting medium to experience and engage in the transacting world. But since it's not available, there is what? No transaction, but what remains in deep sleep? Our existence. So this means in deep sleep you continue to exist, but there is no experience of duality. In the same manner, after the body dies, consciousness exists, continues to exist, but there is no duality of the world. Why? Because the instrument, the transacting instrument, has been destroyed. So this means that the end of transaction is not the end of my existence. Why do I say this? Because we're afraid of death. We think once we die, who is there to transact? I don't want to die, I want to. So use deep sleep as an example. You continue to exist, but one's no longer bound by the limiting world of Advaita, but existence continues. So
Maybe you want to exist because when you're existing, you can experience things, and when you're sleeping, you cannot.
Deep sleep is not an example or a good example to use to death after body and consciousness being free of the body, because during deep sleep, the self is still covered by what? Vasanas, karana sharira. In other words, during deep sleep is total, absolute ignorance. That's how we define deep sleep. But when the body dies, it is actually totally different because there is nothing covering it. Therefore, there is only limitless ananda after the body has gone. Okay, so deep sleep is not a good example to now equate it to death, because then we say, deep sleep is kind of nothing. It's there's nothing there. Death is not like that. Death is fullness, unrestricted by anything, because there is no karana sharira to limit it.
So the only similarity between death and sleep is...
We do use similarity only in the aspect of not having a transacting medium, thus one's not bound by a Advaita world. In the same manner, when the body, mind, intellect dies, there is no transaction, there is only fullness of my eternal nature, which is limitless ananda. So what's the benefit, new topic, of re-identifying with the I, shifting the I from the changing to the changeless? The person is unaffected by Shita, cold, Ushna, hot, Sukha, joy, Dukkha, sorrow. So this is, if without the scriptures, how common we make a mistake. So as soon as we read an enlightened person is free from cold and heat, what's the first thing your mind is going to come up with? So it's going to conclude, if I see a person who is putting on warm clothes because it's cold, they're not a jnani. If I see a person who is putting on a fan, right, because it's hot, they're not enlightened. That's the first conclusion that a reader is going to make up. Okay, so how do we solve this? You have to understand it's only referring to what? A transactional reality, vyavaharika. So an enlightened person is still going to put on clothes to what? Keep their body warm, but they're not affected, or they don't see a big deal in being hot or cold, or identifying with the coldness or the hotness as much as a worldly person is going to do. Same thing with joy or sorrow. A worldly person makes a big deal when they're happy and an extremely sad day when things are not going very well. Whereas for a jnani with samatvam and equipoise and equilibrium, who has a mind of what? Equipoise towards all things. If there is joy, thank you. If there is sorrow, thank you either way. But it doesn't touch me, which is limitless truth, which is limitless ananda. So that's the difference. It touches the body, but it doesn't touch me. And is free from mana and apamana. This is a big problem. Mana, pride. I am proud that I have this knowledge. Okay, what's the problem with that? Okay, the instrument, which is proud, is not given, is not made by me. All I did was I took food from the ground, and the food nutrients grew this body. So the food I didn't make, and the food I took, and the knowledge, which I'm proud, also wasn't mine. It was given to me. So this instrument's not mine. The food's not mine. The rain which made the food grow is not mine. The clouds which made the rain fall to make the food is not mine. The knowledge which I took to be proudful is not mine. The printing, the ink, I did not create. I did not create the monitor, if you happen to be learning from a monitor. I did not even create my eyes, which are capable of looking at the text on the page. And yet, out of all of that, I am proud to what? To be what I am, to have this capacity, to have this skill in whatever it is, in sports, in money, in whatever it is you want to come up with. So you can see the flaw with thinking of being proud. It's completely disregarding the giver of the instruments which are capable of holding whatever it is holding and exercising its talents. So the jnani is free of pride. Why? Because the jnani understands the very thing we just discussed, that none of this is mine. Thus, it is all Ishwara's. Thus, where and who remains left to take pride ship in what? And where does pride happen? In the mind. But a jnani is disassociated from the mind, so who remains left to take pride in the contents of the mind? So if there is pride, it means what? There's still a nuance of I-ness, ahamkara, still linked with and owning the contents of the mind and taking pride. Why? Because it makes the person feel good. In other words, it makes the body-mind feel good, thus exposing the person as still partial knowledge. And also free of apamana, which is dishonor. Think of dishonor as self-condemnation. This is a big problem. We criticize ourselves for not being good at what we do. Suppose you're an extremely talented engineer. There's always a better engineer, right? There's always someone better who can do a better work. So dishonoring ourselves is a big problem, and it comes in small criticisms towards ourselves, because we compare and we always say, I can do better. But who is this I that can do better? It's the body-mind-intellect that can do better. But the body-mind-intellect is always limited to the contents which it is assigned. So how can it possibly want more? Because just the mere nature of being a human being implies what? Limitation. So it makes no sense to what? Give dishonor or give my lack of talent any reality. Because just the mere fact of being a human being, one needs to come to a genuine acceptance that the eyes are limited. By the time you reach 50 or 60, the eyes start to, get lower vision. So that's limited. The strength of the person gets limited. Look at lovely Schwarzenegger today compared to 30 years ago, right? So everything decays. And if one can come to the acceptance, by the way, I love Schwarzenegger, he's my hero. If we can accept, right, the fact that everything is decaying and it's the nature of life, and despite the decaying process, it never touches consciousness, then mana and apamana is impossible.
So
Okay, verse 8, yeah.
Is karma your own? Your karma that you're experiencing right now, is that your own?
What karma?
The karma that you're obviously born with, and that you're generating, and that you're spontaneously living with, can that be seen as your own karma?
As a result of having done punya karma in the past has now caused you to experience the situation or the life circumstances which you are doing so now. We do not always see our past actions because there are too many variables that cloud our vision, so we cannot quite attribute why am I in this position right now. But there is always a reason, and that reason can either be drishta palam or adrishta palam. That means drishta, seen or unseen results of past actions. So the answer to that question is wherever you are now and the kind of life you're experiencing and with whom is directly correlated with what? The past actions which the person has exercised through what? Their purushartha.
So having said that, why can you not then be proud of your karma where you are right now?
Well, who's there to be proud?
If you had the history of actually generating that karma.
Yeah, but who's there to be proud? Because
I'm just throwing it up.
yeah, because even past actions depended on me having instruments and people around me to help me to generate punya karma, which now caused me a very successful prarabdha karma. So even in the past, I depended on what? Objects which I didn't create. So how can pride be possible, since to be here right now, everything and whoever I've dealt with also appeared, why? In that circumstance at that time which I did not create.
So you can see how spiritual one-upmanship can
Yeah, exactly. So James very nicely puts, grace is earned. What is grace? Moksha. It's earned. This idea of just, let it go and let Ishvara give you grace whenever it feels like it, this is completely false thinking. Moksha is earned through, like anything. If you build a business, if you're into business, you know the amount of effort it takes to persist with the income and to keep growing and keep monetizing, to keep advertising. It's constant effort. It's non-stop. In the same manner, moksha is no different. Verse 8. Our goal is to finish verse 10. Okay, we're not leaving until verse 10. Together. Jnana vijnana trip atma kutastho vijit endriyaha yukta ityuchyate yogi samaloštashma kanchanaha. Okay, we'll read verse 7. For the one who has mastered over oneself, whose mind is tranquil, reference to heat and cold, pleasure and pain, praise and criticism, the mind is always in a state of composure. That's verse 7. Okay, now verse 8. All right, verse 8, we have two disciplines. Very important words because chapter 7 is going to come up and we need to know these two words. Jnana, vijnana. What's the difference between jnana and vijnana?
Knowledge and ignorance.
Okay. Jnana is indirect knowledge called paroksha jnanam. What is paroksha jnanam or indirect knowledge? I'm talking about jnanam now. Jnanam is I am body, mind, intellect, and I have consciousness. That's jnanam. What is vijnanam? Direct knowledge. What was that?
That's a direct knowledge.
No, jnanam is indirect.
No, vijnanam.
Vijnanam is direct knowledge called aparoksha jnanam. What is aparoksha jnanam or vijnanam? I am consciousness and the body is assigned to me, which is what? Consciousness, for the sake of realizing my, meaning what? Consciousness, nature, meaning what? Consciousness. All right, so the difference is jnanam is what? Indirect knowledge. Vijnanam is direct knowledge. So these two words we need to know very well because I'm going to start slowly introducing vijnanam since I've been using up to this point constantly jnanam. All right? Okay, vijnanam is, once again, I am consciousness and this body is only incidental given to transact with the world. In the same manner, I'll give you a metaphor. Suppose the body is naked, your body is naked right now. if it has no clothes on, is it going to transact with the world? Depends where you are, right? Okay. To be safe, it's not going to go out to the house, right? So the body's naked, and it's not going to transact with the world. But when the body puts clothes on, then it's going to transact with the world. So what? That means without clothes and with clothes, the body continues to exist. Agree?
Yeah.
In the same manner, with the body or without the body instrument, Atman continues to exist. Okay, so you see the comparison here? Except because the body, i.e. the clothes, are not available, it can no longer transact with the world. So this means that Atman does not need an instrument of transaction to exist or to validate its existence, because it is self-validating as Sat Chit, as awareness existence. And in the same manner we discussed, like in deep sleep, I go to sleep and then there is no body, there is no transacting medium, but it does not mean that I go out of existence. If you did go out of existence, nobody would go to sleep because you'll be afraid of dying. But we all go to sleep comfortably, very joyfully, enthusiastically. Why? Because we know we're going to wake up the next morning. So we have total confidence in the fact of remaining existent throughout sleep and still remaining existent in the morning to wake up. All right, so Vijnanam, once again, is a total change of identity from I am the body, mind, intellect with consciousness to I am consciousness and the body, mind, intellect is an incidental attribute assigned to me. All right, objection's going to come up now. Why should I know Atman? Why should I know consciousness? I'm happy with my body. I'm happy with the world. I'm happy with the limitation of the body. So what does Vedanta say to this? Best of luck. Right? We're not here to force you. We're just telling you that your nature is nitya, shuddha, buddha, mukta, swabhavana. Meaning what? Your true nature is ever free, ever limitless, ever undecaying, ever what? Ever conscious, ever beautiful, ever loving. What else? Ever beautiful. Okay? Your nature is that. Nitya, shuddha, muktas, swabhavana, and buddha. All knowing, all knowledge. And we also say that if you wish to continue having a body, there's a problem. Whether a person admits this or not, there is still a problem. Some people will say, I'm not afraid of death. Right? You'll hear this often. Yeah, but you're going to die, you know, if you don't know who you are. You're going to die and, you know, your body's going to die. It's going to go to old age, disease. You're not afraid of that? No. So then we say, well, if you're not afraid of death, then you're probably afraid of disease. I'm not afraid of disease. Well, if you're not afraid of disease, you're probably afraid of old age. I'm not afraid of old age. Well, if you're not afraid of old age, nor death, nor disease, then you're afraid of old age, disease, or death about someone that is close to you. I'm not. Okay, well then something's wrong with you. Either way, the person will have some kind of fear towards their existence, whether they admit it or not. And this pain or this fear exercises or expresses itself in nuances of what? Fears, lack of self-confidence, and lack of faith in oneself. And this comes out in very small ways, right? It's very hard to detect, but it still comes out. And it produces all sorts of psychological issues. So that's what you get for wanting to be the body, mind, intellect.
But if the consciousness is transacting through a body, we should be experiencing a certain degree of fear and anxiety.
What?
We should. If it's transacting through a body, mind, and intellect, we should be experiencing a certain degree of anxiety and fear to actually function in that body, mind, and intellect.
Yeah, excellent. And this fear and anxiety and appropriate emotions according to the conditions that the body is exposed to will continue, but it's known to be not I. So this is the difference between the paramarthika, the absolute reality, satyam, and mithya, which is the reality of the body. So a jnani is not one who denies their emotions or their thoughts. They still happen like for anyone else, except there is samatvam towards them. There's an equipoise about those emotions. So there is still that sense of I need to address because there's a condition going on, but it's not a big deal, right? The person doesn't identify, oh no, now my life's over. Okay? So the self is tripti. There it is, tripti. Tripti means full. All right. Now this self, how do you come to the self, which is tripti, full? Through self-knowledge. And how do you come to self-knowledge? With a pure mind. So a pure mind leads to self-knowledge. Self-knowledge leads to tripti, fullness. And this fullness is how accomplished? Vijit indriyaha. What is vijit indriyaha? The one who has mastered their emotional state, their body, mind, they self-mastered themselves. Okay, they've come to a state of being able to direct where their emotions and a mature mind. So this vijit indriyaha is what? Kutastha. Kutastha is unshaken. So the one who has mastered their body, mind, intellect is unshaken by what? Circumstances of life. And this person is what we call a yogi, which is equivalent to a jnani. So whenever I say yogi from now on, think of jnani. Now, I'm not talking about a yogi superficial, as most of us know a yogi to be excellent at asana, extremely good at pranayama, lives in the caves, and is extremely good at certain skills. This is a superficial definition of a yogi. A true yogi is one with aparoksha jnanam or vijnanam or direct knowledge of the self. So whenever I say yogi from now on, it means a jnani. Okay, and what kind of a mind does the yogi have? Sama means what? Samatvam, same towards loshtashmakanchanaha. So the mind is same towards what? Loshtaha, mud. I'll explain why. Yeah, mud. You give me why that's the case. So a yogi's mind looks at mud. What is mud, if you think about it? That which is the lowest, you don't even look at mud, do you? You totally ignore mud because it has no value. But what is a yogi's mind? Samatvam. That means an equipoise. That means a yogi looks at mud no different than ashma, which is stone and bricks. A stone and bricks you can at least build a house, so it has a lot more value, right? So a yogi's mind looks at mud just like stone and bricks, and looks at kanchanaha, gold, which has the most value, exactly the same as mud or bricks. So in other words, the perception is different, mud, brick, gold, but the understanding is the same. You understand the difference? A yogi doesn't have, I see gold everywhere. I see, gold in diamonds. No, the still perception is different, but the understanding, that which underlies the mud, the stone, the bricks, and the gold is the same, which is consciousness. Therefore, because of this understanding, there is samatvam. Okay, why samatvam? Because the yogi is free of raga, dvesha, likes and dislikes. What makes a person attribute value to mud and not value to gold? Actually, the other way around. What makes a person say gold is valuable and mud is not valuable? Their likes and dislikes. They're both inherently, intrinsically valueless. They're just gold, mud. In fact, if you need a house, you don't need gold, right? Mud becomes the object of value. So a yogi does not attribute value to mud, just to gold, just because it's valuable and seen as valuable by the stock market, right? Because it's the same. And a yogi also uses what? Mud, stone and bricks, and gold only when necessary. Whereas a worldly person uses it what? To gain status, to gain some kind of extra position in society. For example, a ordinary person would take what? A block of gold or a golden chain and gladly expose it so everyone sees I'm rich. Or a Rolex watch. Just an example. I'm not putting anyone down. Whereas a yogi is only going to what? Take the watch, the golden watch, which costs $20 million, look at the time, and then put the watch away. And then continue the teaching, right? So the yogi only uses the instrument where necessary and then puts it away. Why? Because it is all Pancha Mahabhuta, 5 great elements. And it's just an illusionary effect that gold is gold and mud is mud. But it's actually all one and the same. It's all just atoms. Okay, why does the yogi not have raga dvesha? Well, raga dvesha is attachment to objects, right? And an object is, why are we attached to an object? Because it improves the well-being of what? The body or the mind. So that means if I am in proximity with that person, then that person is going to what? Improve my chances of well-being towards my body, towards my intellect, and towards my life, and I innocently what? Feel attracted to that person. So therefore, my like contributes, and then I end up going with this person or this object because, why? It's going to help whom? The body, mind, intellect. And since the I is associated with the body, mind, intellect, therefore I will improve if I hang out with that object or avoid that object. See the problem? So as soon as this I is linked with the body, mind, intellect, since the body, mind, intellect has constant desire for well-being, for improvement, for status, for position, for health, for strength, for vitality, for stamina, for enthusiasm, for joy, it is innocently going to what? Expose itself to an environment which increases its chances of experiencing that. And since the I is associated with that instrument which experiences that, it means what? Then I am constantly bound, enslaved by objects which I depend on for my happiness, but actually they're for the happiness of the body. And since the yogi's I is shifted from the body, mind, intellect, in whose presence all of the emotions happen, and is disassociated from that instrument, then whatever happens in that instrument has no power for a yogi. You see the difference? Okay. And the yogi is then what? Reassociated or fully identified with the self. And the self, nature, happens to be what? Ananda. And what does Ananda mean? Fullness. That means no object for a jnani or the absence of an object can add any more what? Status, joy or position. Why? Because I am already what? Ananda. Therefore, a yogi has no attraction for worldly objects. Why? Because the self is already full. Thus, nothing can add or subtract from a yogi's already full existence. Okay.
So the yogi can observe the enjoyment of the body, mind, intellect, enjoying a beautiful a timepiece like a watch that's just been really nicely designed and made out of good materials, and look at the time on that. Just the same as you can buy a $1 Kmart digital watch to get the time.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean you've got to be humble and have to have a $1 watch to be a yogi.
It doesn't mean that, yeah.
Because you can still observe the body, mind, intellect, appreciating a good piece of design from another body, mind, intellect.
Okay, what Martin is saying is this is not a black or white. Don't look at this as a black or white. Because now we think, oh, if I want a golden watch, then the person's not a jnani. It's only used because it's available for the moment. If it happens to be a golden shirt, I will put on a golden shirt. If it happens to be a shirt that's torn up, I will put up torn up shirt. In fact, there was a saint who was wearing a silk, high-quality shirt. And people asked him, hey, why is he wearing a high-quality silk shirt if he's a jnani? And someone else answered, to him, it's just a shirt. But to you, it is a silk shirt, right? So in the same way, a yogi doesn't really care, right? It just happens to be around. Okay, revision time. We talked about general disciplines, and four disciplines. The first one is samatvam, meaning what? Equipoise. The second one is self-confidence. Atma kripa. That means I have my own grace. Why? Because if I don't have confidence in myself, then nothing in this world has a chance to come to me. It's just going to be negated by my own lack of confidence in myself, in my own ability to understand this. Self-effort, purushartha. This means purushartha goes along with God's grace. That means your own effort, what affects the grace that you get in life. If we get something that's really good in life, we call that what? I'm lucky. But are you really lucky, or is that only because you've applied previous efforts in the past? Yeah, because you applied previous effort in the past. So free will and God's grace are always together. You don't just, as a business owner, if you know some business owners, they work all the time, like successful business owners. They're constantly working, and then they say what? Oh, I'm so lucky, right? There's a success. Why? Because they're constantly working through their own self-efforts. And finally, personality integration, meaning what? My body, mind, and intellect are all aligned. If my intellect's listening to the Gita, but my mind is what? Is still in a conversation and an argument and dispute that I've had a day ago, then then the person is going to be here, but they're not going to be here, right? I'm here, but I'm not here. You know this from your own experience, right? You're talking to someone and they're not present. Why? Because either their intellect or their mind is elsewhere, but another component is present. I see this often, I used to see it before, when there's an attractive lady and a guy speaks to an attractive lady, he's not interested in what she is, right? He's just, his physical body is there, but his mind is already in bed, right? So this is what we call incongruence. So this means it has to be completely congruent. Okay. And the vision, point number 2, what is the vision of a jnani? Samadarshanam. What does samadarshanam mean? Vision of oneness. So what does vision of oneness mean? It means that there's a change of perspective towards the world. What does this mean? The only reason why we give power to the world is why? Because we look at the world as real. That's why we invest our time, energy, and effort into worldly things and actually give it power to what? To make us feel anxious about attainment. So the power that we give is our fault. So change of perspective means what? I see everything as it is. It only is there to serve me or the society as long as it does. When it's finished, I let it go. I let someone else use it. So, and what else does change of perspective mean? Everything is what? Diamond, not diamond, bangle, ring, necklace, earring, right? Gold bangle, gold earring, golden necklace, golden...
Don't go there, please.
Okay. But what? A jnani sees what? Gold, 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 gold. Right? And only what? Sees the function, name and function, nama, rupa, and function is recognized, but in all the nama and rupa is what? The same gold. And what else does this mean for samadarshanam? Kutastha, we said, unshaken. What does it mean to be unshaken in life? What for a jnani who is unshaken, what does this mean? I used the example last week, a philosopher. When the philosopher's ships were destroyed, and then the unfortunate person who had to deliver the bad news had to say this to the philosopher. And what did the philosopher say? What? And then very quickly, Kutastha regained one's composure and added one single word, so what? It's no big deal. So, in other words, what equals samsara? So what equals moksha. Okay? So one simple change, what the view is of sama darshanam for a jnani. I'm not saying so what, who cares? I'm just saying it's not a big deal. Let's address it, but hey, it's not a big deal, okay? Otherwise we're going to think like a person doesn't care or anything. No, a jnani cares.
Another action that you've got to take.
Another action that you have to address, yeah. But so what? So this is what it means, kutastha, composure. So what? Okay, verse 9. That one, verse 9 and 10 are short. Together. Suhrn mitrar yudasina madhyastadveshya banhushu sadhushvapicha papeshu samabudhir vishishyate. All right. In verse 8, we talked about a wise man who has samatvam towards inanimate or inert objects. That summarizes verse 8. In verse 9, we will now talk about a wise person, a yogi, who has vision, samatvam, towards living beings, particularly human beings. Now, samadarshanam, or vision of oneness, or samatvam, is extremely difficult towards human beings. It's actually one of the most difficult things for any human being to see a sinner and a saint one and the same. So if you're in this category, do not weep or sweat, because we all have this, strong impulse to what? Look at one person higher and one lower. Why is this the case? This is because we naturally form expectations towards people. Why do we form expectations towards our spouse, our family, our children, our boss, our colleagues, other drivers on the road, right? Others, because of our own raga dvesha. And what is raga dvesha? Our own likes and dislikes formed when? In the past, endless janmas, and also raga dvesha, which are inherent to what? The body, mind, intellect. If the body, mind, intellect is in the presence of a person who's clearly holding a gun, right, then the body is going to respond as a form of dislike. If a person is in the presence of another who is holding flowers and very friendly, then naturally the body is going to feel not threatened. So even the contributing factor of the physical body's needs is also going to play along, mix with our conditional raga dvesha, okay? So they both work together. Now, a jnani or a yogi has sama darshanam towards 9 types of people. So we will now talk about them. You want to put 9 people. The first one is suhrt. You don't have to put the Sanskrit. Suhrt means one who is a well-wisher, one who wishes well for all people, unconditional well-wisher. Whether I know you or don't know you, I still wish you well. This is suhrt. Number 2 is a mitram. Mitram is a friend. So the second person is a friend. What is a mitram? A friend is a conditional helper. If I know you, I will help you. If I don't know you, then let someone else help you. Okay? So the first one, a well-wisher, is an unconditional helper. The second is a conditional helper. So what is a friend? One who loves you and only you because they know you. The third is ari, enemy. What is an enemy? Indirect harmer. That means one who backstabs or gossips about another while they're not in their presence. This is an enemy. It's called also, okay. 4 is udasina. This is an indifferent person. One who is indifferent. Udasina. What does indifferent mean? I do not bother about your existence. I'm indifferent to you, right? I don't want to know whether you're well or not well. I just, you're just occupying my mind. I don't want to know. So I'm just totally like indifferent, right? Who cares? The fifth one is madhyastha. It's there. Where is it? Madhyastha. Madhyastha is a mediator. A mediator is one who brings two people together and wishes them well. In other words, let's say marriage counseling. That mediator wants the best good for both. So he wishes both of them good. That's a madhyastha, a mediator. The sixth one is dveshya, or one who we dislike. What is a person who we dislike? The presence of this person invokes in me feelings of hatred. Sometimes so strong I can't help it. That's a disliked person. So if you don't like someone, then we can't help it. They just show up, or even a thought of them shows up, and automatically it just triggers a disliked feeling. Why? Because let's say they're, extremely rude towards children or something. So we just innocently don't like them. The seventh one is bandhu, or a relative blood relation, or someone that is like a relative. Sometimes we say, oh, she's like my mother. Oh, he's like my son. That's also a bandhu. The eighth one is a sadhu. You've heard of sadhu before? Now, sadhu, we have a wrong idea what a sadhu is. A sadhu is one who abides by dharma, one who abides by righteousness. A noble person who follows dharma no matter what, lives a life of values. And a papi, number 9, is a sinner, one who lives a life of adharma, unrighteous person. Some of us were all these types in our life. For example, there's a short period in teenager where we just don't really care about anyone. We just want our own satisfaction, right? Our own food, our own pleasures. Then we're a papi.
That stops at some point.
All right. Now, a jnani or a wise person, a yogi, looks at all 9 equally. Now, you're going to say, how is this possible? How do I look at a criminal same as a saint? How do I have samatvam in two versions? There's 2 answers to this. The first one is a philosophical answer. Now, the philosophical answer says that a jnani sees Atma in everyone, sees pure consciousness. And the attributes of their criminality or their sin are what? They are only incidental. In other words, the sin or the evil is only a superimposition placed seemingly over Atman. And the person, owing to ignorance, identifies with those sinful attributes. Thus, we then call them sinful. But in actuality, they're what? They are noble and they are saintly. Shankara uses a beautiful example to demonstrate this. Sandalwood, if you know sandalwood, smells extremely nice, has a nice odor about it. And if you have sandalwood, keep it wet, okay? What's going to happen is it's going to form a moss over the sandalwood. And this moss, if you smell it, it's going to smell really foul. So if I take the sandalwood and I throw it away, I'm making a mistake. If I take this lovely fragrant sandalwood and I throw it away just because it smells foul, I'm making an inherent mistake. Why? Because if you take that sandalwood and you scrub the moss away and you dry it out on the sun, the same beautiful, clean, noble, saintly, pure fragrance starts to what? Exhibit itself in all its glory. In the same manner, if a person looks at a criminal and calls them a bad person, it's as good as what? Superficially looking at the moss and stopping right there. So due to my own inability to look deeper into the person is why I discarded them. But that is my fault. In the same manner, any treatment towards any kind of infragrance, towards any kind of foul-smelling person, it can be removed. How? With a proper treatment. And is all treatment pleasant? If you go to a doctor, let's say there's a sore tooth, and we go to a doctor to take care of our tooth. Is that pleasant? Or a dentist? No, the injection hurts, the drilling hurts, but what? Why do we take the effort, the pain? Why do we go through the pain? Because we know if we don't go through the pain, there will be lifelong pain of toothache. In the same manner, a person who is interested in moksha, what? Goes through the initial pain of sacrifice about worldly material things. Yes, it is a lot of sacrifice, no doubt. It is a lot of work. In order to what? Remove the lifelong suffering of constant limitation owing to the I being attributed to that principle which is limited, being the body, mind, intellect. So what does this mean? There is always treatment, and this treatment can be applied to any person. For this reason, it stands no reason to call anyone bad, a sinner, or a rude person. Only understand it is only an incidental attribute superimposed due to parents, society, their karma, but inherently that person is pure and beautiful, saintly and noble. So this is what a jnani sees, purity. And the second reason why there is samatvam towards these 9 types is because a jnani has taken care of their raga dvesha. That's basically what determines our likes and dislikes towards people. If a person, if I value money, then what? I'm only going to place my head towards what? A rich person, and I'm going to ignore a saint. If I value computer programming, then I'm only going to what? Hang around with programmers and ignore who? Painters. Okay, so in the same way, jnani has taken care of their what? Their raga, dvesha, and thus it no longer commands who I place attention on. See the 2 reasons? Samatvam, because why? Everything is pure and clean, and 2, because raga, dvesha are eliminated. They're taken care of. Understand? Okay, verse 10. We're done, don't worry. Verse 10 is very short. Together. Yogi yunjita satatam atmanam rahasi sthitaha ekaki yatachit atma nirashira parigrahaha. All right. General disciplines is over. Remember I said 5 parts, Jnana Yoga? So Bahiranga Sadhanam, or general disciplines to adhere throughout the day, are gone. Verse 10 now begins, 10 to 15 is Antaranga Sadhanam, or things to do right before meditation. You see how we're slowly building up to meditation. Now, what kind of things do we do or have to do in order to have a successful meditation? What did I say about meditation? What's the purpose? To convert the knowledge into actual living reality. Thus, it pays or profits the person to have a successful meditation. Thus, what we're going to go through now is how to prepare for a successful meditation. Okay, in verse 10, Krishna, Lord Shri Krishna is going to speak about 8 stages that we need before meditation. They're very short, don't worry. Stage 1, deshaha, place of meditation. What kind of place should you have for meditation? 2 points. 1, secluded. Not anyone around. Because anyone around causes their energies around, you feel it, and you're concerned about them. So deshaha, place of meditation, is secluded. And number 2 is spiritually and physically clean. Obviously, you don't want a stinking mat around you, right? Or crawling insects or cockroaches. And not that you ever be in that place. But spiritually clean is important because if you go into for example, a meditation room which has images of devatas, then it instantly what? It just instantly takes your mind into a very sacred mindset. Okay, so spiritually and physically clean. The second is kalaha, time of meditation. When should we meditate and for how long? The best, in the tradition, the best time is in the morning. Why? Because the previous days' thoughts are diluted. You know, when you wake up, you're not thinking about yesterday's problem straight away. And also, today's thoughts haven't started yet. Right? The problems haven't started. So right in the middle, in that morning, is the best time. Also because according to the sun, if you look at the sun, the higher the sun rises, the more insects and animals and people wake up. So our body is linked with the sunrise. Therefore, another reason why to meditate right in the morning is because by the time the sun reaches, let's say 10 or 11 p.m., there's actually quite a bit of rajas in the body. And a rajasic mind is not conducive for meditation. Okay? Now, the second point, and more important than the first one, is there is actually no appropriate time. All that matters is that the mind is alert and the mind is relaxed. We don't care if you meditate at 12 p.m. or 12 a.m. As long as you're not sleepy, you're relaxed and alert, meditation works. Okay? Duration, how long? The answer is we do not care about quantity, only quality. Okay? If the meditation is 5 minutes, do so, as long as what? It lets you relax and at least have a little bit of space in your own life. One other point is a good way to get into meditation, if you're not meditating already, is keep it short. There's a rule called, it comes from Lao Tzu, but I'll just bring it here. When you do a little bit, Kaizen, when you do a little bit something for a very short time, what you get slowly conditioned. That's how we form an addiction. We go little by little. The phone, every day we do more phone. But what, on day one, we did just a little bit of phone. In the same manner, use this to your advantage. Just a little bit of meditation, 1 minute or 2 minutes, and then the next day, 2.5 minutes. And the next day, 5 minutes. It's going to work like magic. Also for sports, it works fantastic. If you want to get into sports and want to persist with your exercise, refuse to go for 15 minutes. Start with 1 minute. Why? Because then it builds your self-confidence. You go, I can do it. If I can do 1 minute, I can do 2 minutes. If I can do 2 minutes, I can do 3 minutes. Versus, 15 minutes, I'm tired, I can't do this. You see the change? So use this to your advantage, the human psychology of addicting yourself by short time frames. Asanam, where to be seated? The answer is wherever is comfortable. We do not care about what kind of posture, what kind of a place you're sitting on, as long as it is comfortable and it's not going to cause the mind to think about how I should actually sit on something harder or softer. So make sure it's an environment that can sustain your meditation throughout the duration of the meditation. Okay? Next one, number 4, is posture. Sharira, you know Sharira, body. Sharira sthitaha. What kind of posture? The posture is firm, strong. Max base. In other words, your legs are spread wide apart because then it's hard to fall over. Neck and head is straight. And the vertebrae is erect. Okay? Number 5 is even breathing. Prana samyam. Prana samyam. Even breathing. Why? Because breathing is directly associated with what? Our mind. Just like if I take a table, a leg of a table, and I pull one leg, because that one leg is attached to the whole table, I do what? I pull the whole table. In the same way, breathing is like that, connected with the mind. Thus, if the breathing is stressful, so is the mind. If the mind is stressful, so is the breathing. Thus, control your mind, how? By controlling your breathing. Just like if I want to control that table, I don't need to take the whole table, I just take one leg and I pull it towards the appropriate direction. Number 6 is sensory restraint. Indriya nigrahaha. Okay. why do we need sensory restraint? Because, as I said earlier, you open your eyes, poof, the world is present. And the biggest distraction out of all the 5 senses is what? Your eyes. So for this reason, Krishna recommends what? Eyes half closed, as though looking at the tip of your nose. We often misinterpret this in the yoga world, and we actually look on the tip of... You know how straining that is? Extremely painful. Now try this. Just close your eyes half. And what do you notice in front, most likely? The tip of your nose.
You have to be looking down though. If you're looking ahead, you can't see it. You have to look down.
Yeah, they have to be looking down, right?
Yeah,
So if you half close your eyes, it's as though you're what? You're almost looking in the tip of your nose. Not actually, but as though. Now, why half closed? There's a reason for this. If you close your eyes, by the law of association, what does this mean if I close my eyes? Sleep. But if I open my eyes completely, by the law of sensory data, I'm what? Distracted. So what do I do? Halfway. That way, I'm not going to fall asleep and I'm not going to be distracted. Okay, the 7 is mano nigrahaha. This is the most important one. Sorry, the English word is distancing myself away from my roles. Okay, mind withdrawn from the roles. If you're a father and you sit down in meditation, you're meditating on what? Your kids. If you're a mother sitting down in meditation, you're meditating on what?
what to cook.
What do I have to make for food, right? Or when they're going to be hungry. If you're an engineer sitting down in meditation, or a programmer, you're coding in your mind. If you're a musician, then what? You're creating a symphony in your mind. So the important point is, when the person sits down, the only role you are to have is a role of a sadhaka, a truth seeker. The one who, entirely is there just to assimilate the knowledge. This means consciously one has to say, for the next 15 minutes at least, I'm going to put away my roles that I play in life, and I'm just going to be a role of a truth seeker. And there are only 3 roles that we can have. There are best 3 roles to have. You either have a role of a shishya, which is a student, a sadhaka, a role of a bhakta, a devotee of God, or a role of a sannyasi, a renunciate. That means in the next 15 minutes, I renounce everything. I've renounced my spouse. I've renounced everything, right? I'm just for myself alone. That's a sannyasi role. A bhakta role is I am meditating. Why? Because I love God. I love everything. So for that reason, I devote myself to the truth. That's a bhakta. Or a shishya is a role of what? I devote myself to assimilating the knowledge which I have learned as my role as a shishya in class. So these are the only 3 acceptable roles. Now, if you're a mother and you have a small child who's in a cot or a pram or in a care of a certain position by someone else, then how do you manage this? You simply say, Bhagavan, please take care of my child for the next 15 minutes. Why? Because Bhagavan wants our happiness, right? The field wants our... So meditating is good. So you just say, Bhagavan, please take care of my kids for the next 15 minutes. Let them not complain or cry. I want to meditate for this time, because this is my time. So please, Bhagavan, shut their mouth. Okay, so this is trust. Trust, total trust and surrender in God to take care of your family and those who are important to you for at least those 15 minutes, which are utterly crucial to your to your happiness, to your ananda. And finally, the most important is, and we'll finish, is buddhi nishchaya, which in English means what?
Strong determination.
Good. What?
Strong determination.
Okay, I'll say mind that clearly knows the benefit of meditating. If I do not know what's the benefit of getting into something, I'm going to lose my motivation as soon as the novelty, honeymoon factor inevitably degrades. So how do we maintain and persist with our meditation? Constantly reminding yourself the benefit of meditation is what? A freer mind, a sharper intellect, a joyful predisposition, samatvam, equipoise, feeling happy, feeling clear, sattvika, right? Feeling sattvic. So constantly invent or create reasons why I should meditate. How? By creating and adding benefits onto the practice which you are going to do. Okay, this is true in anything. How do you persist in your skill that you need to attend to? By motivating yourself. And how do you motivate yourself? By knowing what's in it for me, by engaging with the skill. So there's a little bit of a self-convincing there to engage in. All right? So this is the most important. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.